welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston, and going to bring you some good information today. And this one I like in particular because there's lots of confusion, and we're going to discuss intermittent fasting. I know everybody's really interested in this. It's the beginning of the year. Everybody's back on their mode of dieting.
Right.
So here we go, and I've got Laura LaValle, registered dietitian, and registered. Please walk me through your degree, because I want to say it correctly. You are degreed. You're not just certified.
Yes.
You're degreed.
Yes. Thanks. Yeah,
Welcome.
That's right. Registered dietitians. It's the only full academic degree in nutrition.
Absolutely.
So,
and I want to make sure
it's a whole approved, coursework. It's basically a 6-year program now, because most places require a master's.
Yes.
I'm older, so what I did back in the day, I did my 4 years plus my internship.
Yes.
Basically is what gets approved as like a master's now.
Yes.
But back when we did it, they didn't confer a master's. But yeah, it's a huge course of study. People don't understand. Nutrition is, when you really want to delve in, you have to learn your chemistry and biochemistry. You really have to look at human pathophysiology.
Yes.
And you have to see what goes wrong and then what you can do with diet to correct it,
Absolutely.
And so it's an intense course of study. So I appreciate that, Marianne, because I do caution people to watch people that just have a certification course of some kind.
Yes.
They've gained some knowledge and they're trying to share that knowledge, but they don't always have the full background of health conditions.
Yes.
And they don't know sometimes where they're making recommendations that could potentially harm somebody.
Absolutely.
So
everybody is everybody's an authority today, right? I mean, everybody seems to know, have an idea. And I think
there's so many online programs and everything, and a lot of people, it's with good intentions. I just caution people, be careful.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, even what like fasting. I'll give you a warning right up front. We're going to talk about fasting today.
Yes.
If you're on diabetes medications, you can't do it.
That's right.
That's
right.
So,
well, let's jump in.
Without guidance, anyway.
Absolutely. We've got a little bit longer for those of you who are kind of used to the hard 26, 27-minute stop. We've been able to expand our time a little bit, which makes it so much better, because I feel like I'm cutting people off, and we're going to have a little extra time to go over these things. A very important topic. And so let's jump in. Will you kind of name the different types of fastings? Because there are some people religiously will do a month fast. There are some people who will do something every other day, or the time restricting, or, there's so many different types. So if you would kind of define intermittent fasting and what it really means.
Yes. So that's exactly it. Fasting has, a lot of religious faiths incorporate either voluntary or, mandatory fasting into their religious practice.
Yes.
It's interesting to me because when you do fast, you do get a renewal of your mind.
Yeah.
So I can see where that clearing would help you, like in your prayer and in your faith life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I would like to say too, people tend to think this is like a newer thing because we've been hearing about it, pretty hot and heavy in the last few years.
Sure.
But calorie restrictions, science and study into calorie restriction in general goes back decades.
Absolutely.
So what they found out was that restricting food intake, and it's in our era, right? When we're in a time of abundance, when people don't go without food because it's hard to find necessarily, unless it's, people that are, don't have much income and can't have food. The vast majority of people are eating every day, eating too much all the time. And that ages us and that shortens our life. So calorie restriction, going back decades, they found that it gives your body the break that it needs from this modern abundance that we have, and actually extends life. And so that's kind of a hot topic right now too, is longevity. Everybody's trying to figure out, how to have more longevity. Calorie restriction is one way. So think of fasting as a method of getting your body out of eating, so many calories all the time.
Absolutely.
That's what it comes down to. And so there's total fasting. So total fast means you don't eat at all for at least a period of, say, like 24 hours.
Yes.
Some people will stretch that into 1, 2, or 3 days. Religious fast, like, sometimes can go on longer, but that's one method. Then there's been adaptations, like every so often, don't completely fast, but just eat in a more narrow window so you don't eat as much. That's called time restricted feeding or time restricted eating. So that's what a lot of people are doing now, where you squeeze your eating window down to, say, between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Right.
So you don't eat in the morning and you don't eat all that long evening. Of course, during sleep, hopefully you don't get up and eat. That's always one of the worst things that can start to happen to people when they start to get so disrupted in their sleep patterns, and they'll wake up and feel like eating at night.
Yes.
And that's an important thing that it came out in all this study as well, is we can't fight our human circadian rhythms.
Right.
We're an animal like all the other animals. You know how animals instinctively go into the cave and things like that? Well, we're more influenced by the sunrise and sunset and all the things in nature than we realize. So when the sun comes up and it's daylight hours, all your hormones for handling nutrients kick into gear. That's when your body is set up to be able to digest and to absorb nutrients. Just look at it that way.
Right.
When you get into evening hours and the sun goes down, the body doesn't like having food.
Right.
If we're following what is built into our circadian rhythms, when we eat in the evening too late, especially, that is very disruptive. It creates a lot of inflammation and a lot of health issues. So it's following circadian rhythms as well.
Right.
So there's other, like most people know the 5-2 fasting, which is a specific method. You eat normally 5 days a week. 2 days a week, you eat very restricted calories. So this is a difference between that and intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. I feel like a lot of people use those two interchangeably, which really they aren't. Intermittent fasting is, let's say, 2 times a month, I decide to do a total fast. That actually qualifies as intermittent fasting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Time restricted eating is what a lot of people are doing.
More
and they just
daily.
eat whatever they want in that short window,
Right.
Whereas with the 5-2 fast, in that short window, you eat only 500 to 600 calories if you're a female, 600 to 800 calories for men.
Okay.
That's not very much.
That's not much
No.
at all. Right.
No. But it does have study on it, and it does a great job for weight loss for people.
Right.
I think it was like a 2021 study on the 5-2 fasting method, and they compared it, I think, just to regular calorie restriction and exercise program, and there was a lot more weight lost on the 5-2.
Is it muscle though? That would be the caution. That
That's the other thing. Well, I guess we can kind of get into some of the studies on the intermittent fasting.
Uh-huh.
There was one of my studies that I used to cite, and was from some time back. What they did was every other day fasting for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a little much, I think, but it actually preserved lean mass.
Wow. There you go.
It's because what happens when we fast, and I guess maybe we should kind of cover that, the autophagy part, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that happens when we fast is that our body goes into cleanup mode. Mm-hmm. And that's just so incredible to me that your body actually has cleanup processes where your little waste proteins will get eaten up and cleared from the body.
Right.
That's the autophagy process.
Yes.
Our body will make, it causes stem cells to get generated. Mm-hmm. It causes a substance in our brain to get generated, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which renews our brain cells. So that's how cognitively, the mind is renewed from fasting.
Yes.
But so I just wrote out the list of everything that was found to happen during that every other day for 3 months.
Great.
Increased fat oxidation. What does that mean? Your fat cells are breaking down. That's what you want, right? So therefore, weight loss.
Right.
Well, then the rest of these are all the things that contributed to that. You get improved insulin sensitivity, your blood sugar comes down. Those two things, when those happen, that's how your body is able to lose weight and break down those fat cells. It's constant high insulin, which is so pro-inflammatory, that is what people are battling when they're eating a typical, American diet. There just tends to default always to too many carbs. Mm-hmm. And that's very pro-inflammatory for the body and creates insulin resistance.
Yes.
So when you do the opposite, you get back into insulin sensitivity again. Right. One of the hormones that does that is something called adiponectin, and adiponectin production comes up when you fast. So growth hormone production
can be tested in a blood test, the adiponectin. So I love that, and I like to test that frequently. So
absolutely. That's exactly right. It can be.
Absolutely.
And then all your inflammatory markers come down.
Right.
So you'll see improvements in things like CRP, So, but growth hormone, that's another thing. On a 2-day fast that I have a study on, growth hormone goes up. Well, what is growth hormone? Growth hormone helps you, rebuild and maintain your muscle. So that's super important. If there are people out there that are really into anti-aging, things that you can do. Some people will take things like sermorelin as you get older to help your growth hormone production, which is great. Well, you can also get growth hormone production with fasting. So, that's great news for people that, a lot of people out there can't afford all these different fancy things,
Absolutely.
But so your brain-derived neurotrophic factor goes up, your brain cells renew, so it stops neurodegeneration and helps brain cell renewal.
Beautiful.
Well, I think that's incredible. And I, as a dietitian, what do we hear all the time, Marianne, as health practitioners? My Alzheimer's runs in my family, or I just don't want to lose my brain. That's one of those. It's cancer and Alzheimer's. I think those are two of the things that people really, really fear.
Absolutely.
And just if you haven't tried fasting, I do encourage you to try it. I personally do the time-restricted feeding.
Same.
And I will give a caution about it because, in true American style, when people latch on to something, they really want to do it. They really want to dive in. They want to go for it. Well, what happens? They get excessive.
Yes.
So the caution is if you do too much too long. So a lot of people are trying to do not eating for 18 hours of the day and only eating in that 6-hour window.
Yes.
Every single day.
Right.
And that can start to skew your chemistry and make it go in a bad direction because that's too extreme.
It is.
So what they're seeing happening with that is it's a stress on the body. So your cortisol levels will start to go up. And what happens is people, your body needs glucose. Your brain and your cells need glucose. Mm-hmm. So the method to get it when you're starving, when you're not, which is basically what people are doing, they're starving themselves too much,
right. Right.
Is you break down muscle because there are amino acids that can get converted into glucose. Mm-hmm. So you start to break down your muscle and your triglycerides go up. I've actually seen people have really high triglycerides when they're fasting.
Yes.
It's because the body's churning and breaking down, like crazy with the amino acids to try and get some food.
It's a sense you're not getting enough of what you need.
That's it. So it's going to extreme. So really, when you think about this, it used to be when I was a kid, you wake up, you had breakfast, you have lunch, you have dinner, maybe you have a little snack in the evening, not every night. So what are you doing? You're eating between like 8 in the morning and maybe latest 8 at night.
Right.
You have a good solid 12-hour fast at night.
Right.
That's even huge.
Perfect. Right.
And you know what? If you can extend it to 14 hours, 14 in that range seems to be like the perfect number, really. If you're going to do it regularly.
Yes.
I think you could do the 18-6s if you do them a couple times a month or something, but you just have to watch your chemistry. So it's a good idea if you do have someone that you can work with, if you're regularly fasting, try and check those labs and make sure you're not starting to go in a wrong direction. But I think, doing that 14 window is just right.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for I hear patients many times who have the alternative ways number-wise. They have the 16-8, they have, the very various ways of doing it. And what is the right way is always the question they'll ask me. And given the studies, it can be all over the place. So thank you for defining that. That's
yes. And you know what I tend to do, just to give a little kind of a practical pointer, because I guess, the bottom line is I'm telling you that as a, health profession person who follows the studies are very, very strong on the benefits of fasting.
Yes.
And I really encourage people to do it.
Absolutely.
But the practicalities, so now I say, well, don't do it too often. Yeah. Well, what would be too often? Well, this is what I'm saying, 14 to 16 hour window, maybe a couple of days a week. That's not too often, And what I tend to do is, because life always gets in the way, right?
Absolutely.
And so we'll have a business dinner or too busy a schedule and we're home and we're eating later than we intended, So if I know I had an evening where I ate more than normal,
yes,
what I will do a lot of times is that next morning I'll just get up, I'll have, a little bit of coffee and, drink water, and I will fast longer, in the morning. I'll go till a good noon, 1 o'clock before I eat again.
Okay.
But then I make sure to don't get into repeating the bad habit of eating too late into the evening, cut it off. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But that's a good point, because many times people will get into skipping breakfast. So we hear all the time that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Don't skip breakfast. But yet when you're doing a fasting regimen, oftentimes you can. So for those who are confused on that point, what does that actually mean? Don't miss your...
Yes. Okay. So that is a very common thing, right?
Absolutely.
Because whether you're young or old, it seems like people with families, especially, you're getting up, you're getting your kids going in the morning,
out the door,
and you just got to get out the door and you don't even take time to eat. And so I just had a client like this a couple of weeks ago that just didn't eat all day, but then, starts eating afternoon, evening, might eat a little bit of lunch, not very often. So then, and it was a man, and every single day is just eating like in that 4 to midnight window, which is the exact time when you shouldn't be eating.
Correct.
So in a way you could say, well, I'm fasting all day. Well, that's kind of true, and it might mitigate something, I don't know, but the problem you're going to run into is you're trying to have your nutrients come in at a time when hormonally the body isn't equipped to deal with food.
Right.
So
thank you.
I had to get him into taking in something in the morning, protein shake or whatever, something.
Whatever you can. Yeah, it's like that in that regard. Yeah.
So we could work the calorie intake into the earlier window where we're not trying very hard not to eat after 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Correct.
Latest. A lot of people say try to really finish by 6, 7 p.m.
Right.
So, that's exactly it.
Many people will go all day.
Honest,
and then eat that one giant meal late in the evening because I don't have time. There are ways to make time and ways you can get in your intake.
And it's all individual response. There are circumstances that might make a difference. I've had a couple of times, handful of times, I would say, over the years where I've had clients that were in like blue collar professions, out working on a construction site, hard physical labor, yes. And they just eat that one giant meal a day, and their labs were fine. So, they were fine.
Right.
It just, you really have to, I always say the proof's in the pudding. So look at what's actually going on in your body. Mm-hmm. If we don't have a problem, I'm not going to make one. If that's an eating pattern that has worked, and as long as the lipids and everything stay good, then what are you going to do?
Yes.
And you have people that work night shifts. Mm-hmm. And for a fact, same as me, right? Yes. Night shift is hard on the body.
Absolutely. People come to me asking, I want to lose weight, and what is your work life like? I work the night shift. I'm like, good luck with that. Just good luck with it. It's hard.
Unfortunately,
against your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, I have a sister that worked night shift for years, and it was she finally found different position and a different, she's in healthcare, right. And she got on days, and it's like it makes such a huge difference. And I really have compassion because people need their jobs. And here you're working hours, a lot of policemen that work night shifts, absolutely. Firefighters, different, lots of different professions, or factory, round the clock factory mm-hmm. operations that you get into night shift. And you can earn extra money on that night shift, but it is very hard on your body.
Absolutely.
I would just caution people that have to work night shift because that's the hours you're awake. You're eating at night when the body's not, hormonally equipped.
Absolutely.
My caution is really make sure that you can manage your carbohydrate intake. You really have very little window for any refined, sugars.
Absolutely.
You have to make sure it's a protein, vegetables, healthy fats, centric, and just, your carb is like your small side dish. You have a few bites because it's too challenging,
Absolutely.
Especially to deal with those carbs when you're not getting sleep. When you're not getting sleep at night, the body will, this will happen to people even if they're not working night shift. You and I see this, right? Mm-hmm. You're not able to sleep at night because such stressful days, and the stress hormones end up interfering with our sleep at night. It's called hyperarousal, right?
Yes.
And what happens to people over time if you don't try to do something to intervene? Diabetes.
Absolutely.
It just puts you into type 2 diabetes. Absolutely. So I found an interesting study, and I thought your people might be interested in hearing this.
Yes.
This is a comparison of intermittent fasting to Mediterranean diet and paleo diet.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I was so psyched when I came across this because paleo is one of those diets out there that has really persisted.
Yes.
And some people don't do too bad on paleo. It can be pretty good. Mm-hmm. So interesting. This was 250 people. And what they did, they didn't assign. They allowed people to self-select what they would rather do. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself was pretty telling, because which of those three diets would you guess that more people chose? Intermittent fasting, Mediterranean, or paleo?
I would assume Mediterranean, honestly.
I would have thought paleo, just really? Because it's persisted. It tends to be pretty popular, but it was the intermittent fasting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And after I thought about it, I thought, well, I do have quite a few people that like fasting because they don't want to have, they don't like cooking. They get aggravated by having to deal with food. Like, oh, fine, I won't eat.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
I don't know if that's what it was or not, but yeah, 54% of the people chose the intermittent fasting diet.
I thought Mediterranean, just because a lot of physicians and a lot of data recently is.
Yes, so 27% was that was Mediterranean, and it was like 17% on the paleo. And they did this for a year, and they also they encouraged them to make sure they exercise, and they allowed them to choose if they want to do just like regular exercise or the high intensity intermittent training. They gave them information and coaching, and then they were kind of on their own for a year. And the main outcome on it was that they were looking at were just the typical things, but mainly they were looking for weight loss. Yeah. In a year's time, the intermittent fasting group had the most weight loss. So I think that would kind of be encouraging to people.
With exercise in general, or what kind of exercise?
With whatever they self-selected as exercise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the intermittent fasting group lost about 9 pounds. That's not a lot over the course of a year. So I think what tends to happen is that people wane, like they're real enthusiastic at first, and then they just tend to not do it as vigilantly as they did in the beginning, and so some weight will tend to come back on. Yes. And people do also have to remember, if you're looking to lose weight and you're going to do something like intermittent fasting, you're going to do like my daily diet is carb managed. So I wouldn't call it low carb. It's not. I eat carbs, but I eat small portions, of the high carb foods, just potatoes, rice, I eat small portions. So you fill up on your protein, eat larger portions of protein, a ton of non-starchy vegetables, tons. I just posted a picture of my plate last night on my Facebook because it turned out so pretty. It was a turkey dish, and it was some potatoes in it, but, lots of vegetables it was like a skillet hash. Yeah. Then I put raw vegetables on the side. So it's vegetables, that's my daily eating, and that's what we try to teach people to do. Yeah. But when it comes to eating more protein, that kind of diet, you will put your muscle on first. That's what I found. Your body rebuilds your lean mass when you're eating more protein. So on these eating methods that they had, the Mediterranean diet was probably the lowest protein one.
I agree.
But with exercise, if people start exercising, your bones are going to get more dense and you're going to start putting on more muscle. So I would like to have had more analysis on how much fat was lost versus lean gain. I really encourage people track your body mass because I can't tell you how many people I've had, their body is literally shrinking. But because that number on the scale isn't dropping as low as they think because their lean mass is coming back on, all they can see is that number instead of,
they're not losing weight,
your belt is going over another notch, your pants are getting loose, so you do have to pay attention to body composition.
Absolutely.
But our show's about fasting, right? And this intermittent fasting won big time over Mediterranean diet and even paleo.
Interesting. And I'll say this real quick, and then we have a very short break. But people who are looking at the long term, you say 9 pounds over a year. A lot of people get discouraged if that's not in a week. And I think if you look at that body compositioning and look at that longevity, somebody that's losing 9 pounds a year has got the lifestyle, has got the idea and the frame of mind.
And it's going to keep going.
Absolutely. For long-term success and improved longevity and reduce disease, that is the mindset 100%. That we are trying to change everybody to. But Laura, I'm going to take a short break and reset this camera and all for us, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Ray Solano with your Healthy Choices Minute, sponsored by Prescription Dispensing Labs. New research has concluded that implementing dietary changes could prevent gut inflammatory processes involved in some chronic diseases. Modulation of your gut microbes through diets enriched with vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, and a higher intake of plant over animal foods has a potential to prevent intestinal inflammatory conditions at the core of many chronic diseases. In short, the foods we eat and our dietary patterns have a major influence on our immune system that can cause many conditions we are suffering from today. Solution: try our OptiMeal shake. Our team has developed the best tasting, healthiest shake you've ever experienced to control blood sugar and to improve your gut. Start your day today with a healthy choice. Call us today at 888-909-0110 for a free sample of the OptiMeal shake. 888-909-0110. Remember, you have a choice in healthcare.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston here with Laura LaValle today, a registered dietitian and a very, very clinical nutritionist. She has worked with so many folks for so long in getting healthy and with longevity, but also doing a lot of teaching, which is, Laura's amazing. She's been doing this a long time, very knowledgeable. We were discussing a lot about intermittent fasting, but I know that there is something near and dear to your heart called fasting mimicking, which I'm not sure a lot of people know about, but do tell. This is very, very good subject.
Yeah, this is a product that came out a few years ago. Intense study on looking at fasting at the USC Keck school, and incredible research that they've been doing. So the theory here was, okay, fasting is so incredibly beneficial, and I really encourage people to try it. If you're on diabetes medication, sometimes you can even work with your doctor. They'll help you lower your dose, or maybe just not take it for the day that you fast, depending on the type of medication that you're on. The theory was, would there be some way we could develop some foods that people could intake to sort of trick your body into thinking it's fasting? And that's why they call it fasting mimicking. So it's the brand name is Prolon, and that's the one that has all the studies. And it's a kit, and it's soups and little crackers and little nut bars, or the fasting bars they call them.
Right.
What they did, they figured out that they call it nutrient sensing. When you take in protein, your body won't go into autophagy. So it's very low protein. It's more fat and some carb. And then they have the drink, and they have, some vitamins and the fish oils that they recommend you take. It's all in a little packet. It's all laid out by day.
Very turnkey.
So the first day you're taking in around 1,100 calories, I think it is. It's lower calorie than most people eat in a day. Then the second day you're down to 800 calories. And the third day is the lowest calorie day. And then it slowly works back up over the fourth and fifth day. The kits are gluten-free and dairy-free.
Great.
So then you do a 5-day fast. And what they have shown is the really huge beneficial impact with the autophagy and how much stem cell production you get, to the point that it's been shown to be a beneficial thing for anybody that's battling cancer, believe it or not, to do these. They're coming up with a whole special program for another kit for people with cancer. And I would just tell you this, our athletes love Prolon.
Yes.
They love the rejuvenation that they get with it. I have clients that literally absolutely love doing this kit. Now, it's not a piece of cake for a lot of other people, however. I have a lot of people that do it that say, oh, it was rough getting through that third day, And one of my big things, and you've seen my talks, Marianne, one of the big things I always want people to know, I don't care what diet it is you're doing. If you're trying to live on kale, there can be a side effect to that.
Exactly.
There really can.
Yes.
So what is the caution with the Prolon? anybody who has reactive hypoglycemia, they have to be very cautious trying this kit. Like, I wouldn't want you to be out driving. And I know this from firsthand experience because everything that I recommend to clients, I try to do myself so that I know what it's like.
Yes.
You know? And I have true reactive hypoglycemia. I've had it from a very young age.
Yes.
And I can't do the Prolon kits. I've tried them like 2-3 times.
Yeah.
My sugar just drops out.
Yes.
I've got to have that protein.
Wow.
So my blood sugar drops, and I have to eat something to get it up. Then you blow the fast.
Right.
So it's because it's some carb in there with no protein and not quite enough fat, I think, that, my blood sugar drops. That's why, but I can do the intermittent fasting, no problem. If I don't eat it all, it's better.
Interesting.
No carb, no nothing.
Interesting.
Then my blood sugar will hold.
Interesting.
So I still have a method, thank goodness. One of the things I wanted to mention on fasting is because one of the things that they found with the fasting mimicking diet is it will go after visceral fat.
Beautiful.
Which is the deep fat that's very high risk, very, very bad for us.
Abdominal fat that people, right? The abdominal
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah. So it's more effective. And so what they found is like they recommend doing 1 kit per quarter. So every 3 months you do a 5-day fast.
Okay.
And over time it's helping people with their blood sugars that have been trending up. It's bringing those down. So, I just think it's another nice way. People have to find what works for them, basically.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk about it as an option. Not everybody can do it like I can't, but we have clients that just absolutely love it.
Absolutely.
It's changed their life.
Absolutely.
Just doing those once a quarter.
That's easy.
So,
That's really not asking a lot when
yeah.
they order like that. Not
Yeah.
asking a
So
lot.
what I wanted to look at then, I became curious. Well, what about does regular intermittent fasting, not doing the fasting mimicking, does it go after visceral fat? And so there are some conflicting studies on it. Maybe not quite as effective. I found one study, what they did, because remember with the fasting mimicking diet, it's low protein because that's how your body gets into autophagy. And that's another thing I wanted to mention for people that tend to eat lower carb, like what we recommend, and you're eating more protein, your body does need a break from even protein every now and then.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that fasting can help. So this was a study that did intermittent fasting with, they called it protein pacing. So kind of lower protein within the intermittent fasting.
Nice.
And when they did that, then again, it went into more visceral fat loss.
Interesting.
So there's something about being lower protein that can help that. But that was comparing to just a regular calorie restricted diet. But the weight loss was more, and it goes after visceral fat loss.
Which is the most important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the real risky, deep fat that's not on the surface. It's under your muscle, and it packs around your organs, and it really increases health risks.
Absolutely.
And generally, the way you go up, the way I've seen be on a day-to-day basis, what's effective for going after that is finding your carb, your sweet spot on your carb. Definitely modifying carbs down, and that will start to get into that fat too.
Absolutely.
But you can boost it with these fasting methods.
Absolutely. Gosh, that's great information. I would love to see that study. So that is great information.
I was I get on the Twitterverse, I call it, almost every day. I scroll, I see what's going on.
Yes.
And somehow I got on like a low, I know what it was about. It was having to do with Ozempic, and the GLP-1s.
Yes.
And it was like a discussion. People were like wanting to be critical of the Ozempic. And I know there's ways you can do GLP-1s that are fabulous. If it's some people, we just need to go there. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
But the whole discussion was all these people saying things like, I've done low carb for years and started exercising, and I lost, 50 pounds, and I've kept it off. And, different people might throw in, say, keto or this discussions, but the general trend was low carb, higher protein plus exercise is kind of the ticket.
Yes.
And then I saw this, it was a physician who chimed in. He said, if you put some occasional fasting on top of that, that is the ticket.
Yeah.
So how about that for
very good. And for reasons like you say, we just need a little break to allow our body to do the cleanup, and that is body compositioning at its best. Again, something that I try to hammer into my weight loss patients is, like you said, don't watch just the scale and the number. You want to, you can drop a ton of muscle and water, and do that very quickly. And you think you've lost a lot of good weight. You're going to turn around, gain all of that back plus more. You've really put something very detrimental in your plan. It's not actual good weight loss. So, people need to really pay attention. That's great.
Well, and it's just because we're also in such a time of abundance, like I was saying, where even people who are pretty diligent, on a good, healthy, what I call, carb modified diet with that formula of protein, non-starchy vegetables, healthy fats, and the bulk of your meal, the main thing that you're eating, and the high carb foods being like your little side thing.
Yeah.
Over time, people still tend to, put some weight back on. It's just because of
ebbs and flows
on food.
Right.
So that's where the fasting can help be a reset, even for those people.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
so as we kind of wind down on this topic, where can people find you? You've got great information. You mentioned your Facebook. Where can people find you?
I'm not a huge online presence. I'm terrible, Mary.
You're not terrible at all.
I don't even have the dietitian Instagram yet. I'm just on Facebook and in our clinics and whatnot. But my little Laura LaValle nutritionist Facebook page. But I'll tell you, that brings me to a point, because what I tend to post on there, I show, my plates that are the formula of success that I think works for most people. Yeah. And what I've seen in practice in years, that's the formula that will work for 95% of the people,
Absolutely, yes.
So fasting mimicking diet, they still don't have a claim. They don't allow it for weight loss claim yet. Why? Because you'll tend to lose, say, I've had people lose 7-8 pounds in those 5 days, but then that tends to come back on. So this is one thing I wanted to say. So I give a lot of low allergen diet tips on my Facebook page. Why? Because it is another factor that can really be messing people up. And they didn't realize that they had reactivity to wheat or gluten, that they have reactivity to dairy. And so why this ties in with the fasting is because I'll have clients that when they feel great, when I have clients that absolutely feel wonderful on the fasting kit, that jogs me to say, we really should look at doing an allergy panel, a food sensitivity panel for them. Because in most cases, the reason why they're feeling so fabulous is because they're off of the allergens that they were eating.
Absolutely.
And so if they just, they still will have positive trends, even if they just go back to whatever they were eating, doing those quarterly, they will still have positive trends overall in their chemistry. But weight will continue to be a challenge.
Yes.
So that's when, if that's the case, then I know
exactly
we need to work on the gut health, and we need to look at food allergens.
Very good point. And I'll speak to that too, because food allergies, food sensitivities brings on inflammation in the body. Inflammation attracts water, and that water weight. So patients will notice what they eat different days. They will gain, 5 pounds overnight and think they've gained fat. It's not true. You've just increased your, inflammation and your water weight from something you did the day before. So start to notice that association, and you'll start to
weight is one of the big indicators for some of my people. So when we do an elimination diet process, I can have people just eat a little serving of, something gluten containing, and from one day to the next, they're up 2-3 pounds.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's water.
It's water. It's
That
inflammatory.
follows the inflammation.
And when you have more water and inflammation, you don't feel well. You feel sluggish. Your brain works slow. You know, all those things. And so,
Yeah.
and I'll put in a nice word for Jim LaValle, your husband, who is fantastic at a lot of metabolic work as well. And he's got some Facebook and Instagram. Well, he's got Instagram mostly. His Instagram lately,
Yes.
and some books and things out there. So I'll do an Instagram post on Dr. Marianne Pinkston. You can find me on Instagram, and I'll put those up. I'll put Prolon up as well. Give them a shout out because they've been very supportive of you guys and your work too. Just in information.
They are.
It's wonderful. Good. Well, Laura, you know, you've done a couple of shows with me. People can go to drpbetterlife.com and find our previous shows. Some information with Jim too, with Ray Solano, who you guys work closely with at the LaValle Performance Health Center. You guys have been supportive of me for many years now. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being on today, and we'll have you back. And Happy New Year.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Always love you to death. Thank you so much. And everybody, I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope this is very useful information. Thank you, guys.